Hello and welcome to the Vicars Watch Dibley,
the podcast where three priests link our stories with those of a Reverend Geraldine Granger and other TV vicars. I'm Kate.
I'm Jenny.
And I'm Ruthie. This episode we're going to talk about winter, which is in season 3 of the Vicar of Dibley, and it's the nativity episode. We've dressed up and we're ready to talk about all things nativity and the joys and the challenges of the Christmas season.
Hello everybody!
Merry Christmas!
Oh, how's everyone doing this week? It's lovely to see your faces. Listeners, lovely to be with you as well.
It really is.
Yeah, we were talking just before recording and we've all said, actually, we've had a fairly pants week this week for various different reasons, which we won't necessarily bore you with, but actually just to be real and say sometimes you have crap weeks as part of ministry and that's just how it goes. So despite that, we are going to think of one nice thing that we have enjoyed this week in the mess of what's happened. And Jenny, over to you.
Thank you to you. I think you're absolutely right. I do a little Instagram thing called The Vicar Today, and I talk about what I've been doing, but I never ever share the stuff that's really bad because obviously you can't. But there is so much more that goes on that you almost you wish other people could know, or you wish that they could see, but you can't talk about it because it's sensitive or it's, inappropriate. But for those of you exploring ministry, just get excited. The Lord will prepare you for all things. So one good thing for me, I was laughing because I always mention candles and I'm surrounding myself with candles at the moment. I absolutely love them. I think one really good thing for me, and I'm sure this is the same for you guys as well, is the genuine joy and openness of children around this season. We've been having a whole month of Advent joy in terms of Christingle services, carol services, dressing up. And I think their joy, fascination, and their willingness to shout out silly things, dress up, or ask questions and believe what you're speaking to them. It's so refreshing and fills me with so much joy. I've been doing some school assemblies for the first time this year, and I've just been absolutely loving it. So I think, the energy that they give, the joy that they bring, they are champions at it. And I've been loving that and being very refreshed by that as well of late.
Yeah. I'll follow on from that then, because mine is also small person related in that we are currently getting our son to use the toilet properly and not use nappies. And it is hard work. I hope he doesn't listen to this when he's 18 and is like, Mum, he's so embarrassing. But yesterday we had a day with no accidents and that was very exciting.
Wow.
So that's been our good thing. How about you, Kate? Have you managed a day with no accidents?
Yeah, mine isn't about a small person, but it's about a small dog. I'm a very proud dog parent because I got a report from the pet sitter. I'm testing my dog, Little Millie, with a pet sitter, and I got a really lovely report about how well she did, and we weren't expecting her to. She was upset for a little bit, but then she kind of resigned herself to her fate, but got comfortable enough to start playing, which is actually quite rare.
That's lovely.
For my little dog with strangers. And also I've made a little nativity costume for her, little angel wings, because she's an angel, which actually brings us very neatly to what we're doing this week.
Oh.
Today we are looking at season 3 episode 2, Winter, also known as the Nativity episode. And we're doing it's in a little bit of a strange order, if you're listening chronologically, because we've skipped the autumn episode, which would have been next in sequence, but we really, really, really wanted to do this. So we'll get back to the start of season 3 at some point soon. But today we are looking at the Nativity episode.
Yay!
And to Get in the mood, we have dressed up in nativity costumes. So I'll start by just explaining my costume. I'm dressed up as a sheep. I've got little sheep ears, and I've got this really big snuggy jumper thing which my sister got me, which the inside is all kind of fleece, so I've turned it inside out, so I've got this big huge expanse of like a sheep body I'm wearing.
You look so cozy.
So
I just
true.
want to
So
snuggle
cozy.
up in there.
Oh, man.
It looks great.
So very cozy.
Yeah. I've got a star costume on because I am a star. It's one of those ones that's like supposed to be for like toddlers, so their arms are each a point and their face points through the front of it. But I just wear it on my face. But full disclaimer, I have now taken it off for recording purposes because I think it would have just been very crinkly and Toby would have hated editing it. Yeah. Same with you, Jenny. You've taken off some facial hair.
Yeah, I stayed long enough for the selfie, but so I'm still wearing. I'm dressed as a shepherd. So what I think is really interesting is that the three of us, without knowing it, all turned up from the same scene of the nativity story: the beautiful star, the sheep on the hill, and then the shepherd. So I've come in this sort of shaggy poncho as a shepherd, but I also had a full wig and beard as well. So I decided to lose those latter two, lest I be literally eating beard hair for the rest of the podcast. But yeah, shepherding all the way. Although I think for my actual crib service this year, I'm going to nick Caitlin's idea and become a sheep for sure.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And I think
Very
we
good.
also need to give a shout out to just how easily we all found nativity costumes
Literally,
at the last minute.
yeah. A hands up, I actually did forget we were dressing up for recording, and I literally managed to find one within, I'd say, about 20 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Love
Vicarage
it.
households. We get it. Shall we crack on with an episode then?
Let's
Let's
do
do
it.
it.
We're starting in the parish council. Maybe we need a theme song for that because it happens pretty much every week.
Really does.
And they're discussing the matters of the day, and they're talking about football, which is somewhat relevant for right now because the World Cup is currently going on in winter, which is a thing that never happens normally. But here it is, and I have to say, I'm not watching it.
No, neither am I. I
And-
don't know why I gasped, sorry.
But I would normally watch the World Cup and watch every match if I could.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
so we have decided to not watch it this year because of all the stuff that's happened in the background.
Ah.
Yeah, the World Cup in Qatar and the things like that. It's still kind of keeping an eye on the score, but we've decided not to watch it, which is a shame. But there
I
we
thought you
go.
were going to say it was an Advent fast. We're fasting from football.
I'm not sure whether we'll do that, but
I noticed. I don't know why I noticed it this time. Maybe it's been true of all the other meetings, but we had tea and biscuits.
I
for this
noticed that
meeting.
too and
Yeah.
thought, that's nice, that's more appropriate. Or they're just there for a really long meeting.
That's more realistic.
Yeah.
True.
Also, the kind of final triviality of that meeting is that Jim is a Trekkie.
Yes.
Just a little throwaway that he was building a enterprise model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go
And
on,
got his-
Jim.
Hands stuck to the telly as part of it. But the big thing for this meeting is they're working out what to do for Christmas and doing the big Christmas show for this year. So Geraldine delegates the task of working out what's going to happen for the big village show with Hugo and some of the other gang, and they have a very nice flip chart to describe what they'd worked out so far. And this is just peak Church of England, I think. Do your churches have a flip chart in them somewhere?
I'm sure we've got one somewhere.
Yeah, I think all churches do.
I think we don't in the church, but we definitely have a couple in the hall.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's peak Church of England, well researched. And their big breakthrough that they've come up with, and you think, oh, gosh, they're going to say what they're going to do. They've decided on their meeting, and it's going to be February the 10th. So that doesn't quite work. But it's a pressure that lots of people feel, I think, trying to work out what to do for Christmas, and especially in villages.
Yes, it's the village Christmas show or the Christmas nativity is one of those points where you're like everyone gets together, and I've certainly come across it last year, which was my first crib service in Patch. I did one of those turn up and will spontaneously do a nativity, intentional chaos. And I really enjoyed it, but I got a bit of feedback that they wanted something a bit more rehearsed. And I had what you always hear and you really get annoyed when you hear, which was, we used to have, or we've always had. But then you're not actually given much information. But it all goes back to a time where there would have been a Sunday school and someone who ran a Sunday school and would rehearse for kids all the way through December, and then on Christmas Eve they'd all be ready to go, and you'd be able to guarantee that they'd be there because their families were church families.
Yeah.
Whereas now the reality is we don't really have many families that come to church. We don't have a Sunday school. So guaranteeing that children are going to be there and working out how we're going to rehearse them is difficult.
That's so true. I feel like even in with this episode, we'll move on to it, obviously the content a bit later. There's a lot of rehearsals needed though. I can't believe that Geraldine has the time to take part in these. Like, I know we're going to be talking a lot about like the pressure on clergy, the time constraints, like you said, Kate, even not having the children to take part or, the people to take part. But when I was watching this, I kind of begrudged the idea that any clergy would have the amount of time to do and conduct all those rehearsals. I was like, I would love to do that. I would love to lead people through a nativity. But like, that's, a bit of an impossibility, really.
You delegate to someone else.
Yeah, 100%. All the fun stuff, you never get to do yourself.
or if this is seen as like a real missional priority and you've got people supporting you, you could do it, but all the other stuff would have to be done by someone else.
Yeah.
So I don't know about either of you, but my diary, once we hit December, just gets so full.
Yeah, that's why we're recording this in November still.
Don't reveal.
Spoiler.
It's true though. And
it is Advent at least.
Exactly. And I think it's good to remind ourselves and our dear listeners, although Advent's nearly over now, that actually through Advent, the whole point of Advent is to slow down and to be quieter, to expect, yes, the coming of Christmas, but also the promise of Jesus' return. And actually that this season is one that is lived slower, but the reality is we're like, buy more things, wrap more presents, make more plans, eat more pies, go more services. Do you know what I mean? And it's like ramps up. Oh, you haven't sent those cards. Oh, decorations. Wow. And you spin round into this chaos of got to make this the really good season, got to do better, got to make sure everyone's happy. And then, like I guess in the church world, got to make sure we have really good services, got to make sure the talk is on point. And for me, the hangover of the Christmas season, the feeling of the Christmas season is a hangover from the last episode we did, like the Christmas lunch incident, where David says, if you preach a stinker, if your service, your nativity, your Christingle, your carol service, the way you come across at Christmas as a stinker, you lose them all for another year. And every time I write or do something, I'm like, oh my gosh, this really matters. And thank goodness that's why we don't do anything in our own strength and like, okay, Lord, speak through me because I really need you. I've got nothing useful to say. Over to you, Holy Spirit.
Amen.
That said, I think Geraldine's situation is a bit different to ours. So I've got 5 parishes, so I have 5 carol services and a really chock-a-block programme because of the number of churches I have. If you're in a bigger town church or a bigger city church, you tend to have a lot of things happening because you've got quite a large congregation. So you've got to have enough stuff on to satisfy and provide for them, but you also have more volunteers to help do it. Whereas Geraldine is in a small village. She only has one church. In a previous episode, we talked about the Christmas lunch incident. She didn't seem to do any Christmas Eve services.
No.
So she only did a Sunday morning, a Christmas morning service. So maybe she does just have more time.
Yeah.
And what, there's the school that meets meets in the village hall.
But we have throughout this episode a general theme through the whole episode is Geraldine's temperament, that she seems to be on edge. And we think part of that is probably due to the stress of all that you're doing through Christmas, but also in chronologically watching this, she's been dumped, hasn't she? Just kind of in the episode before this, she had the relationship with Simon that goes belly up, which we will look forward to or not look forward to talking about soon. So that's all showing as well on top of that. And I think people are nicer to her when she's not that nice to people through a lot of this episode, because they know that there's lots of stuff going on for her personally as well.
Yeah, a bit more forgiving.
And my Christmas has got a bit busier because my spouse has been signed off at the moment. And so we're trying to fit more me as clergy into doing more services, which is great. And I'm loving it that I'm suddenly a lot more busy, and it's really exciting. Like I'm doing stuff with schools that I haven't done for a while. But it is more busy, but I absolutely love it. And I'm so excited and pumped for it and can't wait and feel the stress of it, but also like, yes, this is... I love this season because it's such a great time to shine and just be really upfront about everything. And, you know, the stuff's just come out, hasn't it, about the census, and that less than 50% of the population now would say that they are Christians here in, is it England and Wales? But actually, this is a season where we get to just be really upfront and go, you know what, we're going to talk about Jesus because it's Christmas and that's what we're celebrating. And we can be really upfront and just go, this is the message. You want to know more about it? Great, come along, find out more. But actually, if you just are coming to do a bit of a, you know, come and sing some carols and do something nice for Christmas, you can do that too. If you don't want to know more, that's fine. But this is the time where we can say to people, actually, this God stuff's amazing. And Geraldine talks about that more later on in this episode.
Definitely.
And you know what? It's also a time when even people who wouldn't say they're Christians, I think one of the things about the census is it's just like culture has shifted so that you no longer by default would say you're a Christian, even if you're agnostic. Now it's, you know, if you're agnostic, you say you're agnostic or you're an atheist, I think.
Yeah.
But this season, everyone wants to come to a Christmas tree lighting, to sing some carols, go to a church service. So it's wonderful because you see so many people. And like, I'm going to a school nativity rehearsal tomorrow afternoon.
Oh my gosh.
And then there's a Christmas fair, a Christmas tree festival and a Christmas fair on Saturday. And then next week I've got a Christmas tree lighting and I've got carol services. And it's just wonderful.
It fills me with so much joy. I love it. I'm tired, but I love it. Anyway.
So exhausted.
I think that is the way that it should be, Ruthie, what you were saying about, how motivated, inspired, and what, like, the opportunities. I think when I was listening to you, I was like, yeah, that is just as it should be, in my opinion. I love that.
Yeah.
Then going back to Geraldine quickly, and we've talked about how her temperament, unfortunately, she's not managing, whether it's the stress of a season or her personal problems, and she's being quite mean to people. She's also, we've noticed, she doesn't wear her clerical collar at all in this episode, and the last time we saw that was in Celebrity Vicar, so we wondered if that's just a little sign or tip of a hat that maybe she's not feeling comfortable in her priestly role at the moment, or she's just more inward focused. It's just an interesting little Easter egg.
Yeah. And she's feeling pressure from the village itself, but also from the bishop, it seems, because we then go to the vicarage and she's on the phone with the bishop, who is asking about what's going to happen at Christmas, and she's promising it's going to be the best one yet. And she says, there's a good idea. Will be coming right round the corner, and who appears but
Alice! And she says, nice to see me nice.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which, if you don't know, because I guess it's actually quite an old thing now, that's a reference to Bruce Forsyth, who big on UK TV. Yeah. His catchphrase was
Nice to see you. To see
and everyone
you
responds,
nice.
to see you nice.
It's just weird, isn't it? Anyway, random.
So the good ideas appeared around the corner, who is Alice, and Geraldine says goodbye to the bishop and the two other gentlemen that seem to be residing with the bishop at the moment. So
Rumour confirmed the bishop is in a throuple.
So yeah, that's it. That's exciting for the bishop.
Yeah.
Quite a handful, I'm sure, as well. I didn't mean that literally.
Does your bishop call you up? It's an interesting relationship Geraldine has with her bishop, because
Pally.
so my bishop, when he's worried about me or he's heard about something that's happened in the parish, he'll call me up, but it's always a really supportive call. Like in this situation, he maybe, if I might get a call if I was in Geraldine's shoes of, oh, I've heard you're under a lot of pressure to put something good on for Christmas. How are you feeling about it? How are you managing? Like, it wouldn't be a, so what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Thing.
Yeah. I wonder if they've got that kind of pally relationship where it's a bit more like banterous, like, so what are you doing then? Come on. And like in a friendly kind of way.
Yeah.
Well, she clearly knows a lot about his personal life.
Yeah, they definitely are pally. I think it's kind of like a vehicle for demonstrating that actually your colleagues, maybe your area or your rural dean, your archdeacons, your bishop, they're always kind of not watching what you do, but everyone's kind of, you always catch hearsay of what's working well in other parishes near you. And I wonder if it's kind of like synonymous of that pressure, maybe. Even though, like you say, it probably wouldn't literally happen like that.
Well, just expectations. You know, maybe this is actually a show of a bishop's support for her, but actually he's expecting that she's going to pull something really good out of the bag, and she does.
Yeah.
Well, inspired by Alice,
Definitely.
who comes along, and there's a bit of chat about the Wombles for a while, which is a very British thing. And the merits of the music of the Wombles. But then Alice,
you're a Womble! Sorry, I just had to get that in there. I couldn't let it in. I got to let it out, sorry.
that was beautiful.
You were wombling free.
Yeah.
I had to, I'm sorry.
Oh dear.
I just love the way that Alice like holds her jacket while she does it and everything.
Yeah.
It's like one of that and I'm going to Bethlehem on my own are like my two phrases from this that live on in my like head rent free every day. I know, sorry.
Bulgaria was a man in a suit. No, it wasn't.
You wore a waistcoat.
So many good ones.
Oh,
Anyway, so she talks about Uncle Bulgaria for a bit, but then Alice has the genius idea of doing a nativity, but actually doing it properly on a farm with the animals around and the shepherds actually with the sheep and all this kind of stuff. And Geraldine's eyes sparkle and they're like, ooh, that is quite a good idea. And Alice tries to have a few more good ideas after this one, but it's clear she's peaked.
Yeah, it is a great idea.
What an idea. Like, this is actually on my dream checklist of things I want to do in ministry. And I've got a plan. One of my church wardens has a farm.
Oh, there we go.
Mm-hmm. So
Look out. Christmas 2023. That's it. Yeah, it's brilliant idea and really, really fun and very exciting. But Alice then just wants to turn it into a bit of a pantomime, doesn't she? Which is another, alongside the Wombles, very British culture thing of pantomimes.
I haven't grown up with going to or seeing pantomimes, so they kind of scare me a bit. Is it just me?
They're so fun. So if you've never been to a panto before, pantos are they're usually sort of knockoff retellings of fairy tales.
Yeah.
There's a specific a specific way of acting in them, but the casting as well is also really there's a huge. There's actually, I've read or heard proper analysis of why there's different character types and how it's developed from commedia dell'arte or whatever. But anyway, you have a beautiful young woman playing the heroine, another young woman playing the hero often,
Sometimes
then
you do that,
have,
don't you?
a comedy sidekick character who sings silly songs. I have a good memory of one about flicking bogies everywhere. It was I feel it on my fingers. I feel it up my nose. Out and flick it. So there's often rewordings of popular songs. There's the mother of the comedy character, like Widow Twankey, who is Button's mother, and Button is the sidekick to Cinderella, is often played by a man in drag, but a very specific type of drag called the Panto Dame. And anyway, and there's whole loads of things about the villain being booed whenever they come on stage and being told, he's behind you.
Yeah.
Can I need to make a confession. I said I never grew up going to pantos, or this is alien to me. As soon as you started talking, Kate, I was like, oh my gosh, I was in pantos. I never went to pantos, I was in them. In the town where I grew up in, there was an amateur dramatic society where my beautiful, talented, gorgeous sister would always play the beautiful woman, and I would always play like the scrubber in the chorus. Which I thought was hilarious. So it's bringing back all those terrible memories. I don't like panto, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but I don't.
Panto's a bit Marmite, isn't it?
Yeah, must be.
People tend to love them or hate them.
I get scared.
And, there's problematic things in panto, definitely, and some of the it can be played for laughs. The Panto Dame dressing as a woman, which could be a problem for trans folks, and if that's just played for laughs, but also, drag is also a wonderful part of culture as well. So we need to, that's part of it too. And so that gets a bit complicated, but my mum absolutely adores pantos.
Aww.
So I have fond memories of going to the panto with my mum. And in fact, my mum has a significant birthday this year, and this episode goes out after that birthday. So she will know that for her birthday, we are all going as an extended family to go see the panto in Blackpool.
Aww.
So that's going to be amazing.
Well.
And I know Toby's going to absolutely hate it, but it's going to be brilliant.
Because panto is actually it's something you do with your family or a school group, or I used to go with guides and brownies.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
To be fair, if you've got loads of you going that really get into it and just get your silly on for the night, then I bet it's really good fun. And Ruthie, if your mum loves it, then maybe I should give it another go, because I rate her. Hi.
Well, what we should have done, and I did research this a little bit, is that our beloved Dawn French is in a panto this year.
What?
I know, that is near my mum and dad, but the dates don't quite coincide with stuff we could have done. So
is there online streaming?
Maybe that would have...
Is there a way for us to watch it online?
I don't know.
We'll do that research. But, some places do that now.
Yeah.
We need to look into that.
Dawn French does panto.
That's... Okay, now I love panto.
So let's talking about Dawn French. Let's move on. So we're moving on to they're having the auditions, and Geraldine has a very fantastic outfit she's chosen to be the director, hasn't she?
Yeah, she's deliberately gone, I'm the director, I'm going to put a leather jacket on and look kind of cool. And yeah, there are lots of great Geraldine outfits in this episode, so I think we'll keep going through those. And the auditions begin, and the auditions are happening for are they happening for the Magi, or for the Wise Men, or for the Three Kings?
Yeah, well, this is one of those things which, when we tell the nativity story, and particularly when we put on nativity plays, it's the bit that is most confused. Because often we talk about the Three Kings, and we have the carol, We Three Kings of Orient are. But the word used for them in the Bible is Magi, which often gets translated to wise men or scholars from the East. So I was wondering, what is the modern equivalent of these sort of... They are people with power and status in their society, but the reason they've come to the nativity, as well as being ambassadors from far off lands to demonstrate how important Jesus is beyond Israel and beyond the Israelites. Ambassadors from different faiths talking about how Jesus is king for everyone, not just for not just for Israel. And there's something about seeing the wisdom, and there's about the prophecy and fulfillment of prophecy as well. If you were really like going into folklore, unpicking it, you could talk about the kind of fairy godmothers of Sleeping Beauty, and that sense of that bringing gifts to a child.
Interesting.
Anyway, I was trying to think. So if you go down the wise men and a kind of astronomer's route, I was wondering maybe the modern equivalent is Brian Cox, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Stephen Hawking.
So last year I did a nativity with some young people. We didn't actually act it, but we drew different nativity characters, and so we asked this question of what is the like modern day equivalent of all these different nativity characters. And so for the Magi or wise men, we got a Brian Cox as one of them, and then the other one that someone drew was Chris Whitty. Because being a scientist and studying data and looking ahead, and someone with power or authority and that kind of thing. So that's what that's what they went for.
I wonder if you could also say like maybe social media stars.
Influencers.
Or like rock stars. Like I know Owen comes dressed as Elvis, and actually that's sort of that sense of someone who has power and influence.
Harry Styles.
So let us know, who do you think
that's a great question,
Magi are for the modern times?
Yes, because the boys have an interpretation for it, and they come as different kings. And Frank does a really awkward and horrible impression of Stephen Hawking. Owen comes in dressed as Elvis, the king. And thank goodness that we do not see Jim dressed up as Martin Luther King, because that is just inappropriate.
Which, 2000 could still happen on TV.
Yeah. It's not great. And so we move on from the Kings to Alice and Hugo, who have come because they want to be Mary and Joseph.
Which Geraldine is really disappointed about. I would have thought, yes, the Lord has delivered into my hand a perfect couple, which made me think when I was watching it, do you know, or does this resonate with you, that actually sometimes in your head, as like clergy or as the leader, you can have what you think in your head is a really good idea, and you just really get it wrong, or you miss exactly what God is doing that's right in front of your nose, and you let your own judgment and your own like imagining of the situation to get in the way of actually what works. Because I would have thought that was just perfect, but Geraldine is so gutted and she does everything to try and get them out of being Mary and Joseph. And I just think, that's so, for me, that really resonates with all the times when I've had a great idea that I think is going to work, and I have to get out the way in order for what's actually good to happen, if that makes sense.
But bless Alice and Hugo for the amount of prep work they've done for their characters.
Oh my gosh,
so Hugo's been taking carpentry lessons, they've learned Hebrew.
I would love to know what they say in Hebrew, because I have no idea what.
Well, they definitely say two names of God, Elohim and Adonai.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I'd need to. So I did Hebrew at theological college, but I'd need to sit down with a dictionary, and I'd need to have the script to try and work it out.
Yeah.
So any Hebrew scholars out there, or anyone who just speaks Hebrew, please let us know what they say, because not a clue.
Yeah.
It's probably online. I'll Google it.
To be fair, actually, I did watch with the subtitles on, lol, and for the second part of the Hebrew, I'm not sure if this pops up anyway, but Hugo stays behind and is chatting away to Geraldine. Alice comes back in and in Hebrew says, "Hugo, come on, hurry up." And he's like, "Yes, sorry, Alice, I'll be with you in a minute." So that's the second part of the Hebrew. But the first part of the Hebrew.
Subtitles.
Yeah, according to the
What
subtitles.
does the script have? Does the script have the Hebrew in it?
Oh, that's a good question. To the
Or
script.
does it just say they speak Hebrew?
Yeah.
There must have been a script.
Reverend Spielberg.
I'm sure I heard Adonai.
Oh yeah, there was definitely Adonai.
Adonai, yeah. I always forget how it's pronounced. And I would put some favour over Elohim as well.
Alice suddenly speaks in complete fluent Hebrew. It's just the stage direction.
Cop out.
Why didn't they give us it in the script? There would have been a script, but you wonder what.
Yeah.
I did look up, because it was so wonderfully spoken, I did look up to see if Emma Chambers was Jewish. But, I mean, she went to Catholic schools like Saint such and such.
Ooh.
And, like, which, you know, maybe suggests that she wasn't...
Yeah.
It's not in her Wikipedia.
That's the sort of thing
And
that would be
that is
there.
the authority. Yeah, absolutely. So we don't know what she said in Hebrew, but we do just have to say that Hugo is dressed with a tea towel on his head, which is generally frowned upon a bit more these days because it can have racist connotations. So if you're doing a nativity play, please do not put your shepherds in tea towels if you can. And Kate, you've got an alternative that you've got for your shepherds, haven't you?
Yes, I found them in a charity shop. I've got little children's flat caps. Because that's what shepherds wear. You know?
Yeah, I love it.
We've gone from one stereotype to another one, but it's...
But at least it's a local stereotype.
Yes, we can appropriate that culture a bit better because it's ours. So Alice wanting to be Mary is something that we see a lot in casting nativity scenes, I think. I was desperate to be Mary in other things.
In other things?
Well, it's when you're a little child, I think in the nativity, the star roles are Mary or, second best, the angel Gabriel.
Yeah.
But it's generally the stereotype is that the angel Gabriel is cast as the little blonde girl. I was Gabriel a couple of times.
Whereas Gabriel's actually a bloke.
Yeah. Oh well, angels are non-gendered.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
But yeah, it's really interesting, and it always reminds me of this kind of strong desire and a battle over who Mary is, which is often when you're organising nativities. There's usually really like good record keeping over who was Mary last year.
Yeah,
making sure it's fair.
Can't do it again.
It reminds me of there was in 1999 on I think it was ITV. There was a TV movie called The Flint Street Nativity, which I watch nearly every year actually, and it's adults and fairly well known comedians like Frank Skinner and actually Ralph Little, Julia Sawalha, and even the two main actors from Ballykiss Angel are in it as well. And there's one of the plots, it's based on real experiences of running a nativity in a primary school, and it's all these actors pretending to be children. One of the plots is a young girl who has been cast not as Mary, and she's really, really upset about it, but it's because her older sister was Mary the year before.
Bit of family competition.
Yeah. So yeah, anyway, I love Flint Street Nativity, and I think a lot of us have those go-to things that we watch every year. Like Nativity Goes Wrong is another one.
I was crying with laughter watching that. I think I saw it for the first time last year. It's just brilliant. Brilliant. Playing the piano and it sets on fire.
Oh wow! I need to catch up with my Christmas movies.
You'd
Obviously,
like that.
Yeah.
I have bought that version that's called The Nativity, the film that's got his name, Oscar Isaacs in it, who's Poe Dameron in Star Wars and stuff like that.
I thought the Nativity had Martin Freeman.
Oh no! So like actually like trying to be authentically the nativity.
Oh, yeah.
He's not a teacher. He's Joseph.
Is it Martin Freeman? That is his name. Yeah, it is
Yeah.
Martin Freeman.
Yeah.
Not Morgan Freeman.
No,
who is
very different. Very
but
different.
has played God before.
Yes, that's true. Very true. Yeah, there are
Anyway.
so many great films.
So many great
Anyway, so the casting has been done. It's not been as controversial as it could have been. And they're now in the church hall, and Geraldine has prepared herself for this moment and is in full drama teacher wear. And I am having drama kid flashbacks to this, of being in the circle and doing these different like role play things and scene and all this kind of stuff. Did you guys do drama and things like that at school?
Yeah.
Well, Jenny, we've heard about you and your pantos.
Oh, yeah, I did. Yeah, I did pantos in my spare time, lol. But I also did drama at GCSE and at A-level. I love doing those sorts of things, to be fair.
Yeah.
Whereas I did more... I did music, performing arts. I think I've mentioned it before for my AS levels. But in primary school, I was more of a performer, but at secondary school, I got transitioned to stage management. So that's more what I did.
Still, one of my greatest achievements in life is my sixth form, Binswood, which is the name of the sixth form, award for the arts, BARTS, as it was known for short, for Best Supporting Actress for my AS level or A level, I can't remember it was. I still have the award, and it is prominent in my house so that other people can see my equivalent of an Oscar.
We
Thank
should
you very
celebrate the anniversary of you receiving that award every year.
Oh my gosh.
You should put it on your, like, you know, your Instagram bio and like CVs in the future. And like, you could put a little blue plaque outside your house. It's like, this is where, yeah,
that's a good idea.
This is where she lived.
Yes. I still miss it sometimes. I kind of wish to go back to doing some acting stuff. But it's just
Oh,
hard to
you
fit
should
it all in,
do.
so. I'm just a natural show-off. What can I say?
You're
So
wonderful.
they start improvising to get into character, and we start off with Alice and Hugo acting out Mary telling Joseph that she's pregnant, but it doesn't go particularly well because Hugo is so laid back as a Joseph.
Got any hummus?
Tiramisu he asks for.
Yeah, afterwards. Yeah.
Afterwards.
Yeah.
And this, but there's a fantastic callback, which I've got to steal, which is Alice is making his supper of loaves and fishes. It's a family recipe.
Yeah, that's really good. And like Geraldine, like she kind of winks at Geraldine, doesn't she? Like, see, I'm really good.
Yeah.
I do pay attention.
But then Geraldine gets in the way. Again, this harks back to her rotten kind of temperament this whole episode, where she's like, oh, like, Hugo, you're rubbish at this. Sit down immediately. I'm going to have a go. And it's sort of like, oh, Geraldine, like, you know, you feel sorry for her, but also she's really harsh. But then she dives in, doesn't she?
I think it's when you have that passion project, don't you? You get all encompassed by it. And I know that I've done that when I've had like a big project, that you just so get overwhelmed by it. And I think the state that she's in and everything, she just turns into a bit of a cow in this episode for bits of it.
I like the term passion project. You're so right. Yeah, so true. But she's a harsh version of Joseph, and Alice ends up getting quite upset because I think Geraldine like over questions her about whose this child is, and she's like, "The Lord God Almighty, the maker of heaven and earth." Which then
brilliant.
comes into, she's so horrified that even when Joseph says, "Oh Mary, please forgive me," which Geraldine says, she's like, "No, I'm going to Bethlehem on my own," which I just
But
love.
then,
So
actually, when the scene is called, she breaks out of it. So is this just a hint of just what a good actress Alice is?
Yeah, she's maturing as a character.
She's great. So rehearsal finishes and we go over to Horton Manor and David and Geraldine are sharing a whiskey together. And David has been cast in this as King Herod, who has some questionable traits, and David wants to show the kind of softer side of Herod.
Questionable traits. You want a murder of babies. Oh.
Yeah. I mean,
What does he? What does he?
Sophisticated man into music.
Yeah.
H&R, and he massacres just one batch of babies, and suddenly that's all people can remember.
Can I be cheeky here? I was thinking about this, right? I was thinking about what David said, and I think he's got a point.
I was going to add this in, yeah.
Because I do agree that, rightly so, Herod should be remembered for his outrageous greed and jealousy, which led him to incredibly sinful desires of having everyone killed just because he was so terrified there'd be another king above him. Like, that is horrendous. There's no two ways about it. But nobody is completely fantastic and good, apart from Jesus. Or no one is completely evil and bad. And actually, he does try and bring out a truth about, actually, things aren't black and white. People aren't good or bad. And I was like, ooh, that's an interesting, like, subtext, maybe. Is that a terrible thought?
Well, and on top of that, now I'm going to risk being called a heretic here.
Ooh.
Yes.
If we step aside from kind of, not necessarily biblical literalism, but if we kind of step aside and start looking at the Bible as a text which has been written, there is a critical point of view that might suggest that Herod's order to kill all these potential threats to his throne is a parallel to Moses' origin story. And there are lots of these parallels for the listener or reader, whoever's receiving the story, to say, yeah, this is one of those signs of the Messiah. And this is so we know that Jesus is inheriting the work of Moses, etc., etc. Now, I'm just saying that is a potential interpretation.
That's interesting.
I'm not saying that is or isn't, but we need to think that Herod is being portrayed in a very specific way from a specific point of view, and it's unlikely that any of those characters in that scene or people in that scene were actually interviewed by whoever was writing down the account. That said, in the nativity story, Herod is the bad guy.
Yeah.
If this was a panto, there would be boos every time Herod comes on stage.
Yeah,
definitely.
And that leaves us with quite a problem when it comes to casting. I think David Hawson's a really natural choice, partly because of the role he plays in Dibley, but he's a fairly mature man, except he proves that he's not. And you'd expect that he would be able to handle being a bad guy, because he's used to people not liking him. But often, nativities, it's children acting it out. So what do we do? And how do we cast the bad guy, the villain, when you've got children?
Do you know what? I'm like Jenny, and I've just had a flashback to not being in panto, but I'm pretty sure I was casting Herod for something before.
Let it not be a judgment upon your character, my sister.
So do you get the vicar kid who can handle being the bad guy, or do you get a grown-up to do it?
I always get a grown-up to do it.
Or you just skip
because you've
Herod.
also got the stature of them kind of looming over, so you get that dramatic effect.
Confession time, we miss out the Herod bit entirely.
Yeah,
from
that's
our
what
senses. Entirely.
I was thinking about this scene. It's quite a modern thing to look at a retelling, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, like, Herod being the bad guy and looking for positive aspects of it. We're doing a lot of that at the moment with films like Maleficent, where, you know, the evil queen is got a different thing, or a TV series like Once Upon a Time, or the musical Wicked. We want to see rounded characters, don't we?
Yeah, so true. Because it does tap into that truth of actually nobody is like 100% this, 100% that.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love that. I'm so pleased that that's true. It means that we're all in the same box, and that we're all in need of something greater, calling us to be a truer version of ourselves and calling us to look beyond ourselves. Like, I know this is going to sound a bit evangelical, which I don't mind about, but I'm just warning you in advance. I love that we are all, like, under the umbrella of sinners. Like, I love that we all have fallen short. I love that I can claim, yep, I definitely don't get it right. I don't need to be perfect. I'm not made to be perfect. Sorry, this is taking a bit of a deep turn all of a sudden. So that I can claim what I believe to be true and what I believe that Jesus has done for me, for the world to be true. And I'm so thankful, because I feel like some of my life I've spent it trying to be perfect, get everything right, do it all wonderfully. But that was never asked of me. It's never asked of any of us. And so, if you are a Herod out there, even for you, if you are 89% a baddie, even for you, like for me, like for all of us, there is hope. And this is what Christmas is all about. He comes to be with us. Where is this going? I'm high on Christmas. Sorry, everybody. Took a bit of a weird turn.
Good.
Might want to cut that out. But isn't that great? Set free. Yeah. Set free just to be who we are. Come to confession. Receive absolution. Try again. Love it.
Amen.
Sorry.
So, where are we now? I think we're back at rehearsals.
Back with the shepherds.
Back to the shepherds in the church hall.
The shepherds.
And the shepherds have got some chat going on, haven't they, about, Charlie Dimmock, who...
Oh, dear.
Ground Force.
Ground Force. I used to love watching Ground Force.
I loved it too, but I was really wondering about how Charlie Dimmock felt about this. I mean, she was probably going to cut this, but she was highly sexualised by TV and by people at the time, which I'm suddenly having flashbacks to remembering something where she said how uncomfortable she was, because didn't she leave Ground Force?
Yeah, she did that advert, didn't she, where someone bought her a bra and she used it as a hanging planter. I don't know if it was like for B&Q or something like that, but yeah. So the shepherds are chatting away, and Geraldine's moment has come to be an angel and be wonderful, and she's saying her lines and adding dramatic pauses, but the boys don't think she knows her lines, and so keep interrupting her.
Which, on one hand, so I loved her line, which is something like, I'm a vicar, I do know the words.
Yeah.
Because I think we could probably do a nativity story without any preparation.
Really
at this point.
Yeah, I'd hope so.
My Chris Dingle talk, just do it now. No prep needed.
Yeah. But we won't, because of time.
Exactly. And Geraldine gets very frustrated at being interrupted. It's challenged to her ego again and her competence, and she ends up telling Frank to be afraid.
Be very afraid.
Oh, goodness.
But she does get really scary. She's got a pointy finger out and everything.
She really does.
Yeah.
And then we see her afterwards putting her feet up and taking her moment to potentially de-stress, which even that is interrupted.
Yeah.
Bless her. We're back in the vicarage now, aren't we? And she's got a Yule log in front of her, and she cuts off a slice and then ignores the one slice and goes for the whole Yule log. Just to relax.
Got a glass of wine. She's about to watch a Sean Bean movie. Good choice. Which is a lovely... That's tied into the set design, because there's a picture of Sean Bean on one of her walls.
Yeah.
No advent calendars this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Alice comes in and interrupts, and I was wondering, how do you de-stress during Christmas? What do you do? What are your little traditions? Because for vicars, a lot of the Christmas activities are work. It's not we don't enjoy them, but we're in a work mode. So what little rituals do you have during Advent to help connect to the season, to help just center yourself? Obviously, Geraldine's is eating a whole Swiss roll and drinking wine and watching Sean Bean.
It's not a very holy one, but every year I love watching the film White Christmas, and I usually wrap my presents while watching it, and it's not very holy at all, but it is a little thing for me. Like, this is just a little Christmas thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, likewise, watching silly Christmas movies.
Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yeah,
The
Muppet
best.
Christmas Carol, Flint Street Nativity, Nativity Goes Wrong, also Peter Pan Goes Wrong. Which feels very Christmassy for me. All those little things which they're not churchy. Like, I love church. It's, it's my faith, it's my passion. But it's nice to have those things outside of church which feel like Christmas.
And Jenny, you this year have got the added excitement and challenge of having Christmas now with a spouse, and you're going to go, actually, we do things very differently, and you're going to work out a new way to do Christmas together as a couple.
Yeah, definitely. New traditions. I bought a tree for the first time this year, actually, Christmas tree. We went around and picked it and carried it home, and my best friend came over and we decorated it. It was really cute. But yeah, like getting those new traditions together as kind of like new family unit is really fun. And I think for me, I hope this isn't, too like, oh, here's your holy answer. But I actually love, if possible, stealing myself away to go to a carol service or a choral event or something that I'm not leading or not involved with the church, or love my parish so much in the village of, like, having not the excuse, but making time to go to the next door parish or go back to my hometown, for example, and be a part of a candlelight service or a carol service or, like I say, a choral event. That does give me a lot of joy. Now, haven't always been able to, and with the pandemic, obviously, that's been harder as well, because sometimes those are online or whatever. But I think that would be something that I'd really recommend, something I love. But yeah, with you guys as well, and with Geraldine, with snacks, glass of wine, candles. You know how much I love candles. Candles glowing, great film on, like all of that. Really precious moments as well. Bath. Oh, bath. To de-stress, a bath. No one can disturb you in a bath as well. That's ideal. Yeah. No phone, doors locked, candles on. Yes.
And things that make the house smell Christmassy as well. So candles, or Lebkuchen, or mulled wine, or bake some orange slices. In the oven. Get the house smelling Christmassy and cinnamony and
yeah, true.
Delicious, very delicious. And while Geraldine's doing this, Alice has come over because she's watched a film and is now a bit nervous about her birth, isn't she?
Oh, bless her, yeah.
And it's because she's watched Alien and thinks that's what's going to happen. And so she's a bit worried about doing the nativity now, isn't she?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a heartbreaking moment when someone decides last minute to not be able to do a reading, or I imagine it's even worse when it's like performing in a, well-rehearsed crib service.
Especially when I think, as much as Geraldine wanted to cast someone else, who else is there?
Yeah.
In Dibley, it's a very small village. It's very telling that the only people acting were parish council members.
Yeah. Well, you do see some other shepherds later on, but
and the soldiers as well with Herod.
Speaking parts.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's true.
I do have a little dropping out story if you would enjoy this.
Yes.
As a teenager, I went to a church with quite a big youth group, and the way they did a nativity service is they just shoved all the kids out the back to go put costumes on and things like that. And we as teenagers were like, well, shall we go as well? That'd be hilarious. So we went along, and we were all at the back of church getting ready, and suddenly Mary drops out and she's like, okay, I don't want to do it. So small child does not want to be Mary anymore. And so all the other teenagers were like, Ruthie, you go do it, you be Mary. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll go be Mary then. And then Joseph drops out as well and is like, I don't want to do it. And so the other teenagers are like, Phil, you go do it. Phil is my brother, and so my brother ended up being Joseph. And so the poor vicar at the front of church has no idea this is going on because we're behind screens. And then he announces and says, and here comes Mary and Joseph. And me and my brother walk out coming down, played by Phil and Ruth Banbury.
But, potentially worse is when a child drops out of being Mary or Joseph and an adult steps in, but the other one remains a child. I've been to a nativity
Really?
service where
Oh, no.
you just have that slight awkward, ooh,
Yeah.
More awkward than incest.
I think when you've got like a 4-year-old Mary and a grown adult Joseph.
Yeah, that's not great.
Both not ideal.
Yeah.
But the last minute dropouts, they come. What can you do? They happen.
Yeah. But Geraldine threatens her and says there's no way you're dropping out. And we have our final rehearsal, is it, that they have over in the parish hall? And Geraldine comes and shows off the poster for the nativity, and it's been called The Greatest Story Ever Told. And this was a scene that all of us found a bit emotional, didn't we, from what Geraldine said?
Yeah, it's lovely.
It's just so beautiful and such a fantastic way of putting the Christmas message into words. Like, this has been really crafted and so beautifully put, but I'm going to steal it somehow. Somehow I'm going to use it. And I wrote it down because I loved it so much. And for our dear listeners, if you haven't watched this episode in a while, let's share it for you now. 2,000 years ago, a baby was born in a stable, the poorest of the poor. And yet during his lifetime, he says things that are so astonishing that millions of people are still living their lives by them today. He said, "Love thy neighbour." He told us to turn the other cheek, whatever people might do to us. And then she continues, "But most astonishingly, I believe that this tiny little baby boy actually was the Son of God. And when he was younger than I am today, he was brutally crucified for simply telling people to love each other. And the men who killed him thought that was that. Yet here we are 2,000 years later in a village in the middle of England doing a play about his birth."
It's lovely, isn't it?
Magic.
It's
Really good.
So the play starts. Well, we see that Alice is putting a sign over the sign that says tonight, and she suddenly has a little twinge, does our pregnant Alice. And then we cut forward in the day to them all getting ready in the barn, and Geraldine is really quite stressed by this point and is slightly overwhelmed trying to give everyone a pep talk. But Alice is a little bit distracted because, it seems she's in labour, doesn't it?
Bless her. Which means she probably had some real womanly intuition about trying to pull out. Like, we were all like, "Oh no, don't drop out, Alice." But actually, it's really, if only she had have done, she could have had a baby in peace then.
But she did say it was because she'd watched Alien.
That's true, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
I think it also highlights that Alice potentially doesn't have any people in her life who have given birth who are able to give wise words around her. So we know she lives with her mum, but as we saw in Christmas lunch incident, her mum doesn't seem to be particularly on the ball. And Geraldine, that is one experience Geraldine hasn't had and can't be her give lovely words of wisdom to her about.
But I wonder if so she will have had a midwife who will have talked her through stuff and let her know. And actually, I wonder if she is aware of what's going on, but feels so bullied to stay in this that she can't.
That's so sad.
She says, I think it's happening. And later in the scene, she adopts a good pose to be in for labour and all this kind of stuff. So she does know the things. But can't.
They all think she's just acting.
Yeah. Very impressive, but
Yeah.
it is very impressive.
So, yeah.
So the nativity
she's in
happens, but it's
labour.
real.
And there's loads of really lovely moments in this, isn't there? Before we get to, the gory, bloody detail that happens later on, we see the angels with their buckets of cash. Empty buckets to be filled with cash.
They give us lots of cash.
Yeah. Or else.
Which, frankly, it feels, it is sometimes very tempting to adopt that strategy because sometimes people don't really carry cash nowadays, but the communion, the donations plate is often quite empty sometimes.
And actually, it does take money to do these kind of things.
Yeah, it really does.
So any donations, very warmly welcome. And the next bit we see is Alice riding on a lawnmower because the donkeys run away.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And Jim as the innkeeper, which is just perfect casting.
Oh,
Perfect,
because
perfect
there's no room.
It's
Absolutely
ideal.
wonderful.
It's like that
So
character
good,
was
yeah.
born for that line, really.
Yeah, it's perfect. And David is dressed as King Herod and has a fabulous costume choice that I think makes him look like Ming the Merciless from Flash Gordon.
But I think it makes him look like the Master from early Doctor Who. It's that kind of that black goatee and the black robes. It's the kind of code for this is an evil character.
This is the
Or if you watch
villain.
or if you watch Community, there's the darkest timeline in which
Yeah.
they all wear felt goatees.
Yes.
Oh.
That's a niche reference that Jenny has not seen any.
Yeah.
Yeah. He just reminds me of Herod, to be honest, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
But it's funny because he manages to get a little bit of what he wants. He plays his role really seriously, says all his lines, but then towards, if you've seen the episode, you'll probably remember, he invites the soldiers to go and brutally kill all of the baby boys because of this threat that's coming. And then he interrupts it with, but kill them gently. For Herod was a generous man, and he would often give, sweets to the children in his court.
Yeah.
And then he gets off of his massive throne and gives out sweets to the children, which is, not ideal.
And you hear a little voice say, "I love you, Herod."
Yes, I love you, Herod. Wow, thanks, Herod. I love you, Herod. Terrible.
It's great, and
Everyone's doing a great job, though, aren't they? It's all coming together, basically.
It's all coming together, and Geraldine has her line that she's been prepared to say, and they try to interrupt her again, but she says her wonderful line, and these massive pair of angel wings appear, and then later on a halo appears, and it's just the most wonderful costume, and she's backlit and looking saintly.
Do you ever find, as the vicar, when you're in these sort of things, there is a little bit of a temptation to take this moment to shine where you have to really fight? Do you ever find that?
I never
Or
get
is it just
picked
me?
for any of the roles, so I'm backstage doing tech usually.
I'm not sure I'll fight it. I think you are sometimes in that role. You are the performer, aren't you? And you stand up and you have to do. Yeah, I'm fine with doing ridiculous things for Jesus. I'm thinking back to, was it last year or the year before, where we did a nativity play with a mouse detective who lived in the stables and was looking for clues to see what was going on.
Yeah.
And I showed off on stage pretty much, and
I love that.
being the mouse detective for all of this, and wore a detective hat with mouse ears on it, and you just, I think you can get into the danger of the celebrity vicar, but
You've got to capture people's imaginations, though. It's like go big or go home kind of thing. If you're not going to give it 110% and you've got the gifting to be captivating and inspiring and like all the children be like, oh, what's the mouse going to do next? Like, what are the clues? Do you know what I mean? You've got to put that on display. Like, that's a beautiful thing. It's a gift, man.
But equally, you don't want to outshine
All the children.
the little girl who's gotten a chance to play Mary.
Yeah.
Or
Or
there is
Jesus.
that balance, or Jesus, or the donkey. Actually, you want, if a child's feeling not happy about their role, you don't want to rub it in by having taken one of the best roles for yourself and becoming the star of the show.
I think lots of these times that it's involved children and adults being in a nativity together. Or I'm just selfless show off.
No.
Selfish show off.
No.
Or
You're
I'm just a
gifted
complete
babe.
show off.
Totally gifted babe. That's what you are. But to be fair, there's no getting around that Alice is the hero of this nativity.
No.
Like,
Oh,
no
and
one's going to darken her light.
Absolutely.
No, we rejoin her
On all
in
fours,
the stable,
breathing.
on all fours, getting into position.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hugo being completely useless.
Not a
He
clue
fakes,
what's
doesn't he?
going on.
Oh, I love him. Yeah.
It's just he doesn't realise she's actually in active labour by this point. We're almost fully dilated. Yeah. And the nativity scene continues because no one else has any idea that Alice is actually properly in labour. And so we see the wise men on their camels doing their impression of the Monty Python Holy Grail sketch.
Yes, but which I'm going to have to put my church nerd but actually hat on.
Actually.
Why are the wise men arriving while Mary is giving birth?
I know.
No, the wise men didn't meet Jesus till he was like a year old.
Yeah.
Ah, yes, this is true.
It's the shepherds who met Jesus as a newborn.
Yeah, but we shove them all together.
Yeah,
Amalgamate the story so there's more roles for the children. Or Ruthie.
And also, because you're only going to get some of these people just on one night, so you can't say, and come back in 12 days' time when you tell the story of Epiphany. Sometimes you do.
Yeah.
So the wise men arrive at the stable and Alice is giving birth.
Yeah.
Owen kneels down to present the gift and he gets an eyeful.
He sees the ring of fire.
Oh, bless you.
Which,
ouch.
Yes, I am a person here who has birthed someone. And the idea of doing it in a stable...
Surrounded by loads of people.
In December, in front of a crowd, is slightly terrifying.
Very unsanitary.
Yeah, that's not the cleanest place to be. But I mean, lots of people give birth in places like that, don't they?
Wow, that's true.
Not in nice, clean hospitals like I did. But yeah, Alice has been an absolute champ. She's not been given anything like gas and air or even a couple of paracetamol to try and get through it. And she's there. Sat with her knees in the air, ready to push a small person out. And, well, she doesn't look like I looked giving birth. She looks a lot less sweaty than I did.
We're told she's looking very red and sweaty, but we're not actually shown that she's looking red and sweaty.
No.
And they ask if there's a doctor there, and there is a vet who I think they should have let him help.
Yes.
But they didn't, because David Horton was not letting his first grandchild be delivered by a vet.
Yes. And we did say about Owen as well, who probably has some experience of birthing, helping animals to birth, but no one wants that.
Owen near you like that. And also, we've just been told that he doesn't take baths, so no.
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 We're waiting for him to get the towels from the house, but he's like, I don't have any towels. And Geraldine says, yeah, but what about what you have to do? What do you do after you've had a bath? And he's like, I don't have a bath. But it's saved. The day is saved by Jim because his entire costume is towels, which is hilarious. So he starts to undress. He's just got his big thermal onesie on, just surrounded in towels. I love that bit.
Yes, and Geraldine then takes the role of midwife and helps her to push through it. And it's very apt that Geraldine is dressed as an angel doing this because midwives are absolute angels.
Yeah, that's a good
And
point.
they are such wonderful, wonderful people. And they just made everything so much easier. And when you get back home afterwards, I was like, where's the midwife? I need someone. I don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, shout out to any midwives who are listening.
Woo.
God bless you, you wonderful people.
That's glorious.
And Alice gives birth, and out comes the baby. And babies do not look like that when they come out. No. They look a lot more alien-like and gross.
Well, I also noticed that baby was born wearing tights. Because you could just see her little legs poking out.
Poking out
in one shot. She's fully dressed.
I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, because they've had to put her in clothes, but I, watching it, thought, they found her an outfit, and then thought, oh wait, no, just as you've said that, they wouldn't have had an outfit for her at all nearby. So, yes, we have, the baby is born, and it's a lot more gross than all of that, but it's TV, so you can't show all the gross stuff unless you're watching One Born every minute.
Yeah, and it's for storytelling purposes. They can't have, like, we were talking earlier before we started recording about where's the afterbirth and how Alice would probably think she was having a second baby.
You got to get that placenta out.
But Owen would have known about the afterbirth, so
Yeah.
you know,
They'd have
there was a
done it
way they
together.
could have played it, but they didn't, and instead they start singing Silent Night,
Oh.
which I think all of us found really moving. I actually started to cry. It was so beautiful when they went quiet for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really sweet scene actually. And what's brilliant is that everyone who's been watching Nativity stay so far stays. Like no one goes, oh, someone's giving birth, better go home. Everyone's like, I think one of the people in the audience goes, well, it's really realistic, isn't it?
I think
But
it's
is it
genuinely
unrealistic?
acted.
I was going to
of
say,
it.
is it unrealistic to expect that Alice would have been able to give birth, even if she had been contracting for like 24 hours, that she would be able to give birth in what, like 4 minutes or so? Is that an unreasonable expectation?
Well, it everybody is different, and how long you spend pushing can be different. Like some people, it can be, it can take hours and hours of pushing, and that sounds horrific. For others, it's like a water slide, and baby
well
comes
then,
out
could have been the
quicker than expected.
And it could be, considering we don't have a "oh my water's just broke" moment in the stable. Maybe her water broke earlier in the day and she thought she'd just wet herself. And so actually she's very much in active labour
Yeah,
by the point the nativity has started. And there's lots of travel that they're having to do, kind of to fields and potentially.
yeah, very easy because it's not always a gush like they do on the TV. It can just be a trickle. So you could theoretically just be on the loo and think it was just you were having a wee or something. But yeah, this is
Graphic.
graphic.
So we talked about how everyone stays to watch this beautiful miracle of life. As the camera pans away, I think I counted 8 adults. I guess there's potentially between 8 and 15 adults, assuming there's some kind of inside the stable. And I think we saw maybe 8 children. And the question I've got is, what is for you to, when you've put so much work in, when does audience size feel like a failure to you? Like you've done something wrong, or you feel really disappointed that people didn't buy into this thing you put lots of work into? Because I definitely know the first time I did a Christingle here, I was, having come from a big inner city church, I was like, oh, there's only been a few families came. That's really sad. But then this year, it was like, well, actually, we've reached our capacity with 3 or 4 families. You know, we couldn't have dealt with more than 3 or 4 families. So there's changing expectations of what is actually suitable for your setting. But for the amount of work Geraldine and Co have put into this outdoor nativity, was it worth it?
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? And you want the answer to always be yes. But actually there are things, because you're limited with your time, there's things that you need to prioritise, and some things get more effort than others, just being honest, because you've got stuff to do, and so you do need to think a little bit about numbers. And you don't want to do that, but you also need to, because you're a human being with a certain amount of capacity.
And there's a sense of running at a loss sometimes of the amount of money we put into this event, whether it's heating the church or on costumes or food or whatever. This thing we've done has put us worse off than we were before. But then also there's the other benefits of, but we've done a service for the community, we've done something people have enjoyed, we've bought goodwill, and maybe that will look, you know, maybe we'll receive things back later, but we don't do these things for financial gain.
It's not about the money.
Yeah, we don't do these things only for crowds. It's successful. You know, Jesus says, when 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of them. I think sometimes we get into our heads this fallacy of success. And actually, in the church, just one person saying a prayer is success. One person whose heart is softened is success.
Yeah, I think that's the tension, isn't it? Oh, sorry, Rue, were you going to say something?
Yeah, you go first.
Well, I was going to say it's the tension between like the right answer and the true answer. Like the right answer is absolutely, as you say, Kate, like I've, even like evensong or particular services where you're like, oh my goodness, there's only one person here. That's a shame, or that's sad, or it's not successful. But you're right, it's all about if one person turns up, then absolutely it is, and it's worth doing always. But the true answer, like you say, is looking out, seeing the church half empty and thinking, But I think going back to your Christingle, like you were saying a few years ago, things do take time to establish themselves. And so if something on the first year, the second year, or even the third year feels like lacking, then I think actually it needs time to build a reputation, especially if in a village or a town. So maybe if Geraldine and the crew did a nativity crib, then, in the next few years to come, I bet they'd see see more and more.
Yeah, it's a sort of thing where if they did the farmyard nativity next year, people who went the year before would say it was so good, you've got to come.
Yeah, really realistic birth. It was amazing.
But it's a one-off, which I suppose that's the sad thing, is that this is a one-off rather than...
Yeah.
Well, you never know. It might become one of those traditions later on.
You have those cities that do big passion plays every year, don't you?
Yeah, York is one of them.
They get a huge draw. And some have even been televised. And that must have just started out as once they did a passion play and they started to continue doing them.
Yeah. I've spoken to one of my best friends is going to an outdoor nativity. We were talking about this episode and she was like, I'm going to a real outdoor like farm nativity this year. And it's funny, like, because this was filmed, 20 years ago? Just over 20 years ago. Yeah. And actually the impact it could have had on clergy to think, actually, could I do this? I mean, that's probably happening before as well, like almost certainly. But it's interesting to think, actually, what did this breed in clergy around the country? Thinking
it's the creativity of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just wonderful.
So
and
much fun.
When lockdown happened and Christmas was very different, we had to be creative and had to think of new ways to do Christmas, which is, I think it's always a good thing when you shake things up a bit. And yes, we love some of the traditions and doing a kind of traditional midnight mass or carol service or that kind of thing. There's something very special about that, but there's also something really great in being creative and doing something different.
Defo.
Final thing to say on this scene, I think, is I really hope someone by this point has called an ambulance because they're just carrying on and singing
that, didn't they?
Silent Night. But I hope that someone's there to help assist because that baby needs checking over.
In my head canon, that bet sidles up and kind of just gives a bit of advice and says you should call an ambulance.
Yeah.
You should go to the hospital now.
That's just
Well, I mean, didn't we work out that David Horton is an ex-doctor?
Oh,
he's a surgeon,
wasn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Why was he so grossed out by it then? Oh, maybe because it's his daughter-in-law. But
also he's not. He wasn't in. He wasn't OBGYN.
No.
So he may just have not had experience. I don't know. In general training for surgeons, do they do a round on?
You'd have thought they'd be very au fait with all the body and blood and
body
and all the bits and bobs. But anyway,
I don't know. I think
I'm sure it did work well because
yeah.
The next scene is a bit of a giveaway of is this a happy ending or not?
Yeah, because we're now in the vicarage with the little baby. Who's very, very sweet. And the name is revealed and Alice says that she's named the child, the girl, after you to Geraldine, and so she's going to call her Vicar.
So good.
Which is amazing.
We're going to call her Vicar.
Yeah, Geraldine says, how about Geraldine instead? And they go for that, so thank goodness for that. And David Horton in this looks pleased as punch, doesn't he?
Yeah, very proud. Loving.
Yeah.
Well, he's probably very, very relieved that it's Geraldine, not Vicar.
Vicar Horton.
Vicar Horton. So good.
Great.
Yeah, it's lovely.
So this episode, I think, is one of the more famous ones as well, isn't it? And it's a really beautiful, special one. And you have these moments of, just God shining through it all, and the speech that Geraldine makes. And you also just see the humanness of Christmas and the stress that Geraldine goes through, but also people coming together to do something extraordinary, to celebrate such an extraordinary story. And it's beautiful.
It is.
Yeah, so true.
Whether you're going to be going to a nativity service yourself in the next couple of days, or any other service, or whether you're spending time with family, or whether you're alone, we really hope that you experience some of this Christmas joy this year, that the light which has been born into the world will be with you this Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas!
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Vicars Watch Dibley. Thank you to Toby for editing our ramblings.
Any views expressed in this podcast are our own and don't necessarily represent those of the Church of England or any other organisations with which we are affiliated.
And as always, bless you for listening.
Why do reindeer like Beyonce so much?
I don't know, why do reindeer like Beyonce so much?
Because she slays.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.